everyone. Welcome to the Miss Texas Show. This is the show where we showcase lifestyle in Texas as well as the amazing lives of our victims, survivors, advocates, and many more from domestic violence, sex trafficking, sexual assault, and other violent crimes. Under the military time, we invite our military and veterans who would like to share their stories and experience during and after the military with us. We run this segment in partnership with the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce. We also have another segment called Beautiful Ashes. As you know, I'm Miss Texas, so I have all my beautiful beauty pageants are here that are serving their platforms and making a huge impact to the community. And we also invite our victims and survivors who are now advocates and share their hope and healing stories and the impact that they're making to the community. If you would like to be on the show, you can reach us via Facebook, MSUSA Texas. It's Miss USA Texas. Or you can email us with the same name, missusatexas@gmail.com. Now, without further ado, we are so excited to have our special guest here today, Mr. Tim Stroud. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I know that we were ponging dates back and forth, but finally here we are.
I know you're doing a lot of great work. I know that simultaneous I was giving out turkey and you had a turkey event at the post. And thank you for serving our country. You're a hero. So thank you so
Oh,
much. And thank you, for doing the great work even after your military service for our veterans. So you sent me a bio, a long bio. So I'm gonna just, introduce a little bit of you and let you tell us the story. So I know that you were deployed in Kuwait, Iraq, and also you served in the United States Army as a former combat medic. And after the horrible discharge from the military, you
that would be honorable, not horrible.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I deal with so many victims and survivors. In fact, I just interviewed one of victims, and you will be tuning in January to watch that, the Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
Mm.
And I was like horrified. So I'm so sorry about that. The honorable discharge from the military. And Tim decided to start several businesses in Texas and focus on supporting veterans as they transition back to the civilian life. This is awesome. And this is why we want to bring you on board because, if you have watched our previous video, I have also had an interview with the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce.
Mhm.
And the executive director is like, they are veterans, they are, heroes. You guys serve the country, and how can they be now without home, homeless, and sick and without the help? So I would like to hand the mic to you now and let you tell us, like, your experience, what you like to share about the military, and also the resources, what you're doing now.
Well, thank you very much for the platform to share just a little bit about my story and the struggle, the strength, and the victory of not just my story, but so many veterans, both male and female, that have served in five and now six branches of our military with Space Force. Let me half step back, and that's a military term to give your viewers and your listeners just a little preface about most of the veterans that go that come out of the military. And you said horrible, and that usually happens either during or way after because of the level of care that they're getting for their injuries, both internal and external. For me, I entered the military already having post traumatic stress. My father also served, and so did my grandfather, served in the military. So I'm a third generation military member, and
Wow.
I simply get to stand on the shoulder of giants because they paved the way and made it so much simpler for people to serve today, which is great. But with that, my father served in the United States Army as a military police officer. And when he transitioned out near St. Louis, he became a police officer and served his community. Sadly, by the time he was 26 and I was 5 years old, he was killed in the line of duty.
Oh
And
no, I'm
so I
so
took that
sorry.
trauma and everything that my mom and my sister and I went through. We went from having a nice little nuclear family to us growing up in my grandparents' basement and then my great grandparents' apartment in just a very small community. And I learned very quickly that family was not just your biological connection. It can be just about anybody. And the military, when I went into the military, that was really strengthened. But right before then, my mother had chosen incorrectly for a father figure after my dad passed away. She remarried, and this guy, let's just say, he was less than kind. I learned at an early age that if I let him treat me like a punching bag, that he wouldn't put my mom back in the hospital. So I learned to compartmentalize and just put all of the anger and the doubt and the fear into little tiny boxes and put it right there in my brain. And I promised myself one day I'm going to unpack that when I'm healthy. Well, it wasn't until after I served in the military that I felt strong enough to address what had happened to me prior to the military of going through all that abuse. And he actually used her love against me. And looking back, I wasn't, I learned to forgive him, and it took me longer to forgive him than it did the guy who killed my father. And I wasn't so mad at what he did to me. I was angry and upset of what he did to her because he turned a beautiful and trusting woman into somebody who was scared. She became codependent. She could not be autonomous, and she was brilliant and so loving and so giving. And that's why I love the butterfly pictures that are there behind you because the butterfly was one of her favorite icons because it was rebirth. She said, Timothy, anybody can go through hell and just have the worst life, but they can go into that cocoon and they can emerge something totally different. She's like, the choice is yours. And so when she passed away, I finally entered into the military and I became an combat medic. And my goal was to help as many people as I could, both on our side. And when we deployed, per the Geneva Convention, I had to help out our enemy combatants. And so, patching and plugging them up with these two magical medical hands, and then transitioning out of the military, learning that the skills I earned and learned while serving in uniform did not serve me well into a civilian community. I had 2 weeks prior, I had just assisted with an amputation. I gave IVs left and right and did so many things along with the other medics. And I have to give it up to my trainers and the men and women I served alongside. I was about here as a medic. They were heads and shoulders above me. They had great skills. But when I
Wow.
transitioned out, even though I was an EMTB, and so that's EMT basic, I could not go to work directly in a hospital. And thankfully, we're in a time right now, end of 2020, where we are paying our nurses and our medical professionals what they're worth, which is great. But back
Right.
then, when I got out about 14 years ago, I couldn't even get a job. And so add that to all of the stress that was going on. I talked to my friends and my mentors, and I said, there's got to be a better way. Well, there wasn't. So we made one. And so we got with a lot of the Vietnam veterans that when they served, some of them didn't have a choice. They either went to college, they went to the north or to the south to get out of the system, or they deployed. And a lot of them, when they came back, they didn't get the hero send off nor the hero's welcome. And they said, never again. Never again will we let our country treat those who have served in such a poor fashion. And because of them, we started so many different VSOs, veteran service organizations. And that's one of the things you were talking about with the Veterans Chamber of Commerce. There have been so many organizations that have popped up over the last 15 to 20 years, and veteran owned businesses that now scatter throughout the country.
That
And
is
one of my
awesome.
goals was to help bring them to light and connect them.
That is awesome. What a wonderful story. I can see that, your family, your upbringing, especially your mom, was very fundamental to your, when you mentioned about the compartmentalization, I can completely understand. Between you and I like to, I'm an engineer, so I think a lot different than most women. And women, like, they kind of like have everything just commingle together, but
Hmm.
I have, chat with my male friends, my business partners, and I was able to learn how to compartmentalize. Because when you do certain things, you have to leave things behind. Otherwise, you will never be able to achieve. It doesn't mean it will go away. It will never. Just the PTSD. I'm sure you know that. I'm an advocate against. I mentioned domestic violence, sex trafficking, sexual assault. So the PTSD, as we work with mental health professionals, we talk about these are things that will never go away, but it's a coping mechanism, how you work around it. And there are good days, there are bad days, but a lot of our survivors, what they're sharing their story is like yourself. They're empowering themselves, empowering others while they're helping others, and that is the best way of healing. And I'm so proud of you for what you're doing, and I'm so glad that you recognize the butterfly paintings behind me. This is actually my project Butterfly. So I've been working, with different artists. And if you are listening, you're an artist and you want to join us in this, because my goal is again the hope and healing for everyone. And Butterfly, you mentioned from the cocoon to when it's finally soar its wings and can truly fly. There is a dark period when you have to go through, but this is a period that you must go through in order to look beautiful like a butterfly. Ever since I heard the story, I just like I go nuts about butterfly,
Mhm.
I even make my own butterfly jewelry. I buy butterfly jewelry. I see butterfly. I just like a whole collection of butterflies. But yeah, thank you for recognizing that. And another thing you talked about the VSOs. I think it's wonderful of what you're doing. And obviously you're an entrepreneur. Many people they come out, they wanted to find a job, but I love what you do. If there's no way, I'm gonna make a way. So
That's
tell us,
exactly right.
I love it. I love it. So tell us more about, how did you make it? You said like 14 years ago. You look so young. That 14 years. You said you're just coming out
Well,
of the
thank you.
military, but so we're gonna listen to your experience about how you made the way.
I appreciate that. Well, I when I got out, when I was transitioning out of the military, I knew what I knew, and it wasn't enough to be where I wanted to be in life, both professionally and personally. So I sought out a mentor, and I found one in Paul J. Meyer. He had written tons of books on self-help and goal setting, and he was teaching me about servant leadership. Well, I absolutely fell in love with that, and I went on to get my bachelor's and then my master's in servant leadership with the Ken Blanchard College of Business, and then just kept moving. I was baffled that there were guys and gals that were getting out of the military that simply didn't know that there were benefits there to help them out. One of the first things that we do is we connect veterans to their VA, that's Veterans Administration, to make sure that they're plugged into the system, because if they deployed in a combat zone for 5 years, they're able to get the full resources of the VA. Now, there are certain limitations, but that is a huge cast of that net over the system. And for those who don't want to partner with the VA, there are organizations like Easter Seals of Greater Houston, Coalition to Salute America's Heroes, Camp Shield, which is for female veterans, and the list goes on and on. I currently work with over 1,000 of those veteran service organizations to make sure that the learned knowledge and activity knowledge help out. And I'll explain. So, for a long time in our country, mental health was taboo. You had to get this far back because you did not talk about mental health because you had a concealed handgun license, or you had a top secret clearance, or you were simply working in a vocation that if you mentioned that you may be talking to a psychologist or a licensed clinical social worker, people may not trust you as much as they should. But we've learned in the process that emotional intelligence is muy importante. And so you take that learned knowledge and then you put it with an activity. So we've got this part right here. What do you do? Where is this? Well, you meet the veteran where they are. It could be through equine assisted therapy, something with horses, canine assisted therapy, something with the dogs, getting them a service dog or an emotional support animal, depending on the level of care that they need. But it could be something as simple as going running with Team Red, White, and Blue, or going fishing with vets on the water, or going diving with another program called Project Waves, which teaches veterans to become scuba certified, travel the world, and band together. So we find the different programs by shocker, talking to the veterans and finding out where they have a passion, where they find joy. And if they don't know, we introduce them to different organizations where they can roll up their sleeves, volunteer, and breathe, talk, and find out that they're not alone. And we found that it is largely successful.
Oh, wow, this is wonderful. We're going to share your link under our comment section so that people can, go to the resources. You said you partner with like so many different organizations, over 1,000. So we're just going to link them to you so that they can contact you and if they need their services. But that's really wonderful. I have heard about, horse therapies, but I love I love to travel, but right now there's limitation about that. But just thinking about you can bond, trauma bonding, bond with people that you have been through the similar situation, and you are finding a connection through a similar hobby. What a wonderful way that you help them to heal, because like you mentioned about the mental health, and I did not know this at all, so thank you for educating myself as well. I know that obviously there's PTSD from the warfare, there's also sexual assault, and there's also sex trafficking in the military. But and the idea that it's not to be talked about. I come from a cultural. I'm from China originally, and in some of my other videos, we talked about the culture about the honor and shame system about not talking about it. So this is very educational to us. I think only when we recognize that there is a problem, then we can find a way to cope with it. And like we mentioned before, it's something not gonna go away. And if you just suppress it, it's only gonna get it worse. So that is the best way to deal with it. And so yeah, this is so wonderful. And you also, you did the turkey event at the post, right?
Oh yeah, and
So
before we jump into that one, the one of the other things that we've done for veterans and their family members and patriots, we started a program through Toastmasters International, and we entitled it The Veterans Voice. And with that, it's a public professional speaking group that anyone can join, but its focus is on the three groups that I mentioned, and we help veterans find their voices, which is great. Maybe they went through military sexual trauma. They went through something traumatic while in garrison or and during deployment, and we need to help them find that struggle, and in the process notice their strengths, get them on a path to healing, and get them to where they need to be. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier was volunteering. Sometimes you think, that's not for me. Next thing you know, you roll up your sleeves, you're talking to people, and you find that therapy. One of the groups that we have that pops up once a year, it's called Operation Turkey, and largely it was through the Greater Houston Veterans Club and through the VFW and American Legion. We kind of all banded together, which was nice, and sprinkle in some Lions, one of their clubs, and we had thousands of volunteers that came together in Houston to feed 7,970 people over Thanksgiving. These were
wow.
500 smoked butterball turkeys, and they were delicious. And we delivered them to everybody who requested one. Now we topped that at 8,000 meals, and we only dropped one meal at our location. So every one of those meals were enjoyed by the people that requested them, all in a COVID free environment.
Wow, thank you. Thank you again. I cannot say enough thank you. On top of you being a hero serving the country and now serving the veteran community, just like you see, the COVID free, this year has been very difficult. So I know a lot of the organization are trying to work around that. Some of the events has to be canceled. Just, we had toy drive for Christmas and it has to be canceled because of the situation, but it's so nice that you're able to deliver 8,000 meals to the veterans. This is awesome. Thank you so much for what you do. I love it. And next year, count me in. I would love to be part of it.
Excellent. I'll put you on the distribution list.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, this is wonderful. Like you said about, the veteran, did I say it correctly? It's the veteran's voice that's partner with Toastmasters.
Yeah, and so that's just one of the clubs, and
Mm-hmm.
I think there's over 45, maybe 50 clubs, and you can join any one. But this one had a main focus of taking those who simply didn't have that civilian talk, because you have to remember that when you go into the military, you're taught, even though they support the individual, you're trained to look, talk, and act as a complete unit. And so you wear the same uniform that everybody else wears, and some small discrepancies that are minor changes on rank and where you were deployed in different skill sets. But for the most part, you're wearing the same uniform. You talk the same. And when you get out, that's not a culture that you're used to. So we help them by preparing them for a professional career, but also for a personal one, letting them know that they can open up, talk to others, and find their voices.
That is wonderful, and that is just as the therapy itself. I think it's
Yeah.
very therapeutical.
Yes.
That's awesome. So, where can our audience find you for all the wonderful services that you're doing?
I'm glad that you asked. They can find me at Easter Seals of Greater Houston. They can simply Google that, and we've got all of the social media covered, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or you're just clicking on Google. It's worth a Google. You can find us on the regular website, or you can go to texvet.org. That's TEXVET.org. This is one of the organizations I was able to help stand up after I transitioned out of the military. A lot of the resources I just talked about are actually on that page. So they don't have to contact me directly. And if you Google, you're going to get thousands of stuff. So go to that organization. There's another one that's called combinedarms.us. It uses a different algorithm and funnels to help you. The first one, TextVet, is going to give that list of everything that you need. The second one is going to give you a different path, and it's going to recommend, but you have to sign up and put some different more information in there. And so just choose which path is best for you. And then if you can't find that, check me out on LinkedIn. It's under Stroud Marketing, Stroud Marketing.
I'm writing it down, and we'll be sure to link that in the content section below so that you'll be able to access to those useful and very good resources. But yeah, this is awesome. I really enjoy that, Tim, for you making the time. Like you said, we were both busy and having to schedule and reschedule, and so glad that we finally were able to make this happen. So now with the 2021 coming, do you have anything new that you would like to share with us?
Oh my goodness. If you have another hour, I'll just share it all with you. We've got so many events planned, and we just wrapped up a gala with one of our partners, and that was helping a hero. In one night, we raised over $500,000. And what they do, they provide housing for severely disabled veterans, and that's male and female. They're able to gift them basically a brand new home. Now, there are some stipulations that going through, but we help out veterans with financial matters, and with the mental health and the physical health. And a large part, we have to connect them to those resources, and I love to do it at live events. Well, we've got some crawfish boils that are popping up in the greater Houston area. Easter Seals has a virtual and an in person meeting called Walk With Me at the Houston Zoo, and that'll be in the April timeframe. And we're going to do a ton of stuff with the Houston Rodeo. So fingers crossed
Oh
that
my
COVID
God,
is in
rodeo.
our rear view mirror by then and we can do some stuff. So if they're a veteran or family member, then they can connect with me on social media because we want to make sure that all of our veterans get out in a safe manner and are able to connect to their resources and other veterans.
Absolutely. I think that's the whole reason why we're both here for, for them to be reunited and they
Yes.
can be connected and use the resources that you're providing. But talking about rodeo, I know that this year, about rodeo time, that was the beginning of the COVID and
Right.
everything got stopped, and in fact I almost went to the cook off myself. I'm glad I did not because I heard there were cases that were contracted during the cook off, and so
There
yeah,
were.
I'm really excited to for it to open up, and I know that there has been vaccines that came out already. I don't know what stages are and what are the plans, but I think we're just gonna have to get used to the new norm and cope with them and social distancing and wearing masks and everything. But I really hope that rodeo will be going on because I will be going.
All right, that sounds great. I'll have to link up with you and connect you to a lot of the people we were talking about. And just as an admin note, I want to say thank you to all of our elected leaders on throughout the political spectrum on both sides that saw that COVID was a thing and they shut down the rodeo, even though it was a huge economic loss, not just for Houston but for the great country of Texas. We lost out probably about a $500 million, $500 million worth of revenue because it's just multi-million dollars worth of revenue with throughout the spectrum that the rodeo provides. It's the second largest rodeo in the United States, but our leaders said our lives are more important, and I'm glad they made that. And I'm looking forward to the gates being open and where we can flood out and in a safe environment go out and network and fellowship.
Absolutely. That was a great call. We're so lucky to have great leaders in our community and to make the right decision that put our lives first. And this is really important. And we feel really blessed. And like you said, this is the multi-billion-dollar industry. But when it comes to lives comparing with the dollar, there's a priority to take. And I feel really blessed to be living in the Texas country, like you said, because we are our own, we have our own culture and everything, and we are proud Texans. And I now speak like y'all. I know that I'm from China, so like when I first heard that, I'm like, that's so weird, and I couldn't really understand the accent. But now I'm a proud Texan. Like when I go make my public speech and things like that, this is how I start my conversation with because I am a proud Texan and I'm a proud American. Thank you so much, Tim, for being on this show, for the time, and especially the service you provided and now the service you're providing to our veterans community. And we look forward to hearing more news. If you have more events and other things coming up, we would love to bring you back on board again.
Absolutely. And first of all, you're worth it. Thank you for acknowledging my service. And for all of our veterans and their family members, especially for our veterans, welcome home. Please remember that you have a grateful nation and a grateful community that welcomes you back with open arms, whether you got out in World War II or 2 weeks ago. We want to make sure that we connect you properly. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation.